What's up, you guys? My name is Aubrey and this is my channel, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about this $1.9 trillion stimulus package. As you guys know, yesterday this was signed into law by President Joe Biden, which means it is absolutely official. So what I want to do is I want to break down the bill, I want to reference the bill and do a screen share with you guys and break down some of the different details of some of the bills that I know you all are most interested in. So let's get started. Now, before we dig into the details of the stimulus package, I would like to note that over the last few weeks, I've been changing up my YouTube studio to make it just more professional, to increase the quality, to improve the lighting and all of that stuff. Well, yesterday was my very first video with the new lighting setup, and I heard your feedback loud and clear that the setup I had yesterday was too dark. So I went through, I adjusted some of the settings, mostly just on my camera, and this is kind of what I've come up with. So I think that this is a drastic improvement from yesterday, but I would love to hear your thoughts. If you guys think that this is good, if you like this setup, let me know down in the comments below. Again, keep in mind that the background is gonna have something behind me. I do have something on order which will be going in the background behind me. It just simply has not come in yet. So again, I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Leave a comment down below. Your thoughts on the new lighting setup, if this is light enough, if it's still too dark. I would love to hear your thoughts. So with that out of the way, let's dig into the stimulus package. So the way that I'm laying out this video is I'm going to be laying it out based off of small business aid, housing aid, general aid, and child tax credit. So I'm going to be covering those kind of four sections, and in the description down below, you'll see some timestamps. In those timestamps, you can click on them and then it will take you to the relevant section that you want to view. So for example, if you're somebody without kids and a child tax credit does not interest you, then you can simply skip that section and move on to the next one. So you can find that down in the description below. Now with that, let's begin with that child tax credit, because this is something that I made a video on in the past and we can kind of touch on it today. Now, all information regarding the child tax credit can be found on page 459 of this bill. And what the child tax credit is it's actually not creating a new tax credit. It's really just revising a previously existing tax credit. Now, what this means is that if you are somebody that has a child, either 5 and below or 6 and above, up to the age of 17, you can be eligible for a tax credit. For children 5 or below, you're eligible for $3,600. For children 6 and above, up until 17, you're eligible for $3,000. Now, the real game changer with this tax credit is that this is a fully refundable refund, meaning that even if you're somebody that does not owe money on your tax bill, you could still receive this money. Now, with tax credits, typically they're laid out and they're kind of designed to benefit people that traditionally owe on their taxes. So for example, if you go to file your taxes and typically speaking, you have to then pay the IRS, a tax credit is something that would benefit you because it could potentially decrease or completely negate the tax bill. But alternatively, if you're somebody who typically gets a refund, meaning you get money with your taxes, you're somebody who may have not traditionally been able to take advantage of tax credits in the same way. In this case, it doesn't matter if you owe money at the end of the year or if you're getting paid money at the end of the year with tax season, you could still take advantage of this tax credit. So you could potentially receive a check next April, or alternatively, you could receive cash advance payments. Now, if we scroll down a bit further to page 463, you can see the section titled Advance Payment of Child Tax Credit. Now, what this is saying is that you have the option, if you're somebody who is eligible for the child tax credit, you can receive up to 50% of that child tax credit in the form of a cash advance. And between the month of July of 2021 until December of 2021, so until the end of the year, you could receive 50% of the total tax credit that you would be owed in the form of monthly payments. So let's say, for example, you have one child that is 10 years old. With this child tax credit, you could receive $3,000. Well, with this cash advance, you could receive $1,500 between July and December in the form of monthly payments. So they would divide that $1,500 and then they would pay it up to you month by month from July until the end of the year. Then once tax season comes next year, April of 2022, you will then receive that additional 50%, or it would be deducted from your taxes and what you would owe on your tax bill. So if you didn't owe anything on your tax bill, you would get that money back. If you owed money on your tax bill, then it would be deducted from that, and then you would get the remaining balance. Now, one thing I would like to note about this cash advance is that if you're somebody that has had a child in 2021, so between January and today, you will not be eligible for these cash advance payments. You have have to have had your child claimed on your 2020 taxes in order to be eligible for this cash advance payment. But if your kid was born between January and today, so in 2021, you are still eligible for this. You'll just have to wait until next April to collect. Same goes for the stimulus check for that child. If you had a kid, your child is eligible for that stimulus check, but you'll have to wait until next tax season in order to get that. Now, the income thresholds of this child tax credit are outlined right here. It's $150,000 if you're filing jointly, $112,500 if you're a head of household, and $75,000 if you're filing as an individual. Again, if you're interested in reading more about this child tax credit, it is on page 459. This will also be in the description below. Next, let's dig into housing. So there is a lot of funding options going to housing. I'm not going to discuss all of them in this video because there's too many to speak about, but there are a lot of aid going to people who need housing assistance. So if we go to page 206, which is the page I'm on now, there is a subtitle B, housing provisions, and there is $20.2 billion being allocated to the emergency rental assistance program. Now, in this $20.2 billion section of this bill, there's a lot of money going to a lot of different places, but the one that I want to talk about specifically is the $1.2 billion that is going to high need grantees, and this is a substantial program. Now, if we scroll down to page 211, you can see a section entitled High Need Grantees. And this section right here outlines who would qualify for this $1.2 billion in grant funding. Now, what this grant program is designed to do is it's designed to help low-income individuals pay for their rent by giving them a grant that they do not have to pay back. And in order to qualify for this grant, you have to be very low income. You have to be paying more than 50% of your income on your rent and living expenses, and you have to be living in substandard or overcrowded conditions. That is the requirements that you have to abide by in order to qualify for one of these grants that is being issued through this $1.2 billion program. Now, again, this section starts at page 207, and the section specifically about high need grants is on page 211. Next, let's talk about emergency housing vouchers. Now, this section is on page 217, and what this is, I'm going to scroll down here, this is $5 billion being allocated to emergency housing vouchers. And this effort expires on September 30th, 2023. Basically what this is this is rental assistance for people or families that are either homeless, at risk of being homeless, or people that are fleeing, attempting to flee domestic violence, dating violence, assault, human trafficking, things like that, as well as recently homeless individuals. And this is an effort to help these people find affordable housing. Now, again, this is page 217, 218, and 219, and $5 billion is being allocated to this effort. It does not expire until 2030, so there is a long time to be able to claim this. But if you're somebody who is potentially like in this qualifying factor, if one of these factors makes you eligible for this type of housing voucher, I would definitely look into it. I think that this is a helpful program for anybody that is finding themselves in a tough spot. Next, let's talk about small business. So first is the EIDL grant, or the EIDL cash advance. Now, this is outlined in section 6002. You can find it on page 308. Now, the EIDL Cash Advance program has kind of gotten a variety of different funding with the last couple of stimulus package. We, of course, had the first one, which was passed last March. We then had our second stimulus package, which was passed in December, which allocated more money to the EIDL Cash Advance program and opened up the Targeted Cash Advance program, which is basically an invite-only cash advance that only certain people qualify for. And with this newest stimulus package, we don't have a $10,000 cash advance, but there is a $5,000 cash advance. But the requirements are quite strict. So there is the ability to get $5,000 grant from the EIDL program, which means it's $5,000 that you do not have to pay back, and it's $5,000 on top of the potential $10,000 that you already received. Now, this is $5,000 outlined right here. And in order to qualify for this, you have to, one, show an economic loss of 50% or more, and you can't have more than 10 employees. Additionally to that, you also have to meet the requirements that were outlined with that first targeted cash advance, the one from the $600 billion stimulus package that was passed in December. And the requirements for that was a 30% gross revenue decline and the ability to show that you come from a low income community. So basically, for example, if you meet the requirements of 50% revenue decline, if you do not employ more than 10 employees, but you do not live in a low income community, which is outlined by the IRS, you would not qualify for this super targeted cash advance. Now, the exact way that this $5,000 idle cash advance is going to play out is unclear. They do have a time frame that they have to adhere to per the bill in order to release guidance for this cash advance, but as we've known from the last two bills, the SBA is never on time, and I highly doubt that that time frame will be adhered to. So we'll just have to wait and see. My gut's telling me it probably will be invite only once again, and that they won't do an open application process, but we will simply have to wait and see. But again, you can find this information on page 308 to 310 in the bill. Now let's talk about the PPP. So information about the PPP can be found on page 306, 307, and 308. I would say the biggest piece of information that we have about the PPP is the fact that it's receiving $7.2 billion in funding. And that is, of course, helpful for businesses that want to apply for the PPP. But as far as the PPP goes, we still currently have the first draw and the second draw open for applicants. We do still have a updated formula for solo entrepreneurs, and that application still has not been reflected on any online lenders' websites. So that is something that we are still waiting on. And I think that that's kind of the biggest piece of the puzzle that still is not solved with the PPP program, is the fact that we have an updated formula for solo entrepreneurs, but that updated formula is not reflected on virtually any lender's website. So we're going to have to kind of stay put and stay tuned for that to see when that gets updated. But I will be updating you guys on that when it is complete and when these lenders have made that application change live. But in the meantime, the biggest piece of information from this bill really is about the $7.2 billion in funding. There was some details on forgiveness and second draw as well as first draw PPP applicants, but not a ton to where it warrants digging into it in this video. But I can do a video on that in the future if you'd be interested. And now let's talk about general funding. So there is a variety of different programs that are getting funded, and the first is stimulus checks. This is, of course, the most obvious one. If you are an eligible individual for stimulus checks, you could get $1,400. If you make $80,000 as an individual, or if you make $160,000 as a married couple, then you could qualify for the stimulus check. There will be a phasing out period for this stimulus check, just like we had the last two checks, but the phasing out period will be more aggressive, meaning that there is a chance that you could have received funds the last two rounds, but you may not receive anything this round. It will depend on what your income level is. Additionally, adult dependents and child dependents are also eligible for the full $1,400 as well. Like I mentioned earlier with the child tax credit, keep in mind that if you've had a kid at this point in 2021, between January and today, then you will not receive a stimulus check for that kid, but you still will receive those funds. But they will need to be claimed next year on your taxes through a recovery rebate. So if you recently had a child, don't be surprised if you don't receive a stimulus check for them. You'll be able to claim that next year, which I know is frustrating, but there really isn't any way around that I've seen. If you filed your 2020 taxes, then your stimulus check will be based off of that income. If you have not filed your 2020 taxes, then it'll be based off of your 2019 income. In addition to stimulus checks, there is $350 billion going to state and local governments. There is $130 billion going to schools, and there is a large amount of funding going to vaccine and COVID-19 testing efforts as well. Honestly though, you guys, this really barely scratches the surface of what is included in this bill, but I really did put a lot of thought into the different types of programs that I felt you guys would be most interested in, and as a way to cut time and save you guys from the boredom of reading a bill this long, I've decided to narrow down the topics to this video to just these topics I've discussed here. But again, it barely scratches the surface. So if you're interested in learning more, I highly encourage you to check out the bill. I think it is really interesting to actually dig in and read the bill to see for yourself what is included, what the details of those inclusions are, and how you can take advantage of these programs. But of course, if you don't want to sit there and read it, I certainly don't blame you, and I hope that this video did a good job explaining some of these programs in an easy to understand way. Like always though, you guys, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, remember I will be doing a FAQ video in the coming days. So if you have a question you'd like to be answered, leave a comment down below or head over to the community tab on my channel page and leave a comment there. I will be taking comments from both sides and then I will tally them together and I will answer those questions in a video. So leave a comment down below if you want your question answered. But while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.